This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, this is the Bruce Bawer Moment brought to you by the Glazov Gang. My name is Bruce Bawer, and I've been writing about Islam for about 250 years. Or at least it feels that way. Actually, I moved from New York to Amsterdam in 1998, thinking that Amsterdam was this secular liberal paradise. And it didn't take long before I realized that if you took a few steps away from the central touristy part of Amsterdam in any direction, you would be thrust back into the era of Muhammad, where there were women covered all over the place and men with these long beards, and it was an Islamic bazaar, and it was bizarre. And I soon realized this was the case not just with Amsterdam, with pretty much every major city in Western Europe. And I also soon learned that this situation was progressing very rapidly. So Amsterdam, in short, was not a paradise. On the contrary, Amsterdam and every other major city in Western Europe was quite quickly being transformed into something very, very non-paradisiacal, very illiberal, something pretty much out of the Quran. And now I was someone who had never given 10 minutes thought to Islam. But I started giving a lot of thought to it. And eventually I wrote a book which was called While Europe Slept. It came out in 2006. And the subtitle was How Radical Islam is Destroying the West from Within. And it says, well, I don't need to get into that book. It's a book you can read. You can read about it. You can order it. It got a lot of reviews. It got a lot of attention. It was a bestseller. It was nominated for an award, and then I was roundly attacked for having been nominated for an award because I was this monstrous Islamophobe, and how dare they nominate me for an award? Anyway, a couple of years after that book, I followed up with another book called Surrender, which was about the extent to which, not only in Europe, but also in America, as I now realized, people were giving in to Islam in ways that really were disturbing. There was appeasement, there was censorship, and there was self-censorship by writers, by artists, by all kinds of people who were supposed to be on the front lines of freedom. And if we don't have free speech, we have nothing. Free speech is the beginning of freedom. The end of free speech is the beginning of the kind of submission that Islam is founded on. And that's what this book is about. And one thing you will notice if you compare these two books is that, and While Europe Slept, in the subtitle I refer to radical Islam. In the subtitle of Surrender, I refer to Islam because in the time between writing the first and the second book, I had come to realize that radical Islam was a misnomer. People talked about radical Islam or about Islamism or extremist, it's all kinds of expressions, the whole point of which was to say that, well, to suggest that in some way all these bad people had hijacked something that was good. And Islam was okay. There was no problem with Islam. The problem was that there were these bad people who had hijacked it. And I had, between writing those two books, I realized, no, the problem lies in the religion. You read the Quran, which every good Muslim is supposed to believe that every word of the Quran was dictated by Allah to Muhammad, and that it still applies. There's never been a reformation in Islam of the kind that, for example, that has taken place in Christianity a long time ago. And if we lived by the Bible, we'd all be killing each other. If you lived by everything in Leviticus and Romans and other places in the Bible, the Old and New Testament, it would be a mayhem. But not even the most Bible, people call themselves Bible believing Christians, biblical literalists, are not really literalists. Or there would be all kinds of people who would be dead at their hands. They are not literalists. But millions of Muslims are literalists. That's what it means to be a true Muslim. Now, are there good Muslims? Are there good people who call themselves Muslims? Yes, there are. There are many of them. But the point is that a good person who is a Muslim is not a good Muslim. A good Muslim, if according to Islam, a good Muslim is somebody who recognizes that if you leave the religion, you should be executed. If you are a rape victim, you should be executed. If you are gay, you should be executed. The truly good, by our Western standards, truly good people who call themselves Muslims are not good Muslims by Muslim standards. They have chosen their conscience over the Quran. They've chosen love over Islamic law. That's what is important to understand. So when I write critically about Islam, I'm not writing critically about people who call themselves Muslims. I'm writing about the religion, about Sharia, about the Quran, about what is expected of people when they call themselves Muslims. Now, at this point, I have written, I don't know how much about Islam. Not just these books, but I've written hundreds of articles. You can find most of them, links to most of them at my website, brucebawer.com, and that's Bawer, Bawer. But there came a point where I felt I wanted to find a new way to reach a new audience with the message about all this. And it has been frustrating. Since 9/11, there have been so many terrorist acts. There has been so much advancement in the Islamization of the West. And yet there's been so much lying from the media and from the politicians and from others. And there's still so much amazing ignorance on the part of the public about basic facts having to do with this religion. And I have been trying to communicate those facts through nonfiction, through these books, through articles. And so I decided, okay, what am I going to do? I don't want to repeat myself. And my father-in-law had always been telling me, why don't you write a thriller sometime? Why don't you write an adventure novel? Because that's the kind of book he thinks is that's right up his alley. So I started thinking about that, and I ended up writing this book, which is called the Alhambra, it's a thriller, it's an adventure novel. It's set on the eve of 9/11. It's set in Europe. It has nothing to do with the Alhambra, the place in Spain, directly. It is set in the Netherlands and in Germany. It is about an American in Europe. It is about several Europeans. One of the major characters being someone who was born into the Muslim faith. And I thought that, well, this would be a way to get to readers from a different angle with what I have to say about Islam. I've tried to make it a book with no nonsense, no padding, a fast-moving story, a strong plot, vividly captured settings, the kind of book I would like to read, a book that conveys as much as possible of what I've learned about Islam and about the Islamization of Europe, a book that captures experiences, that puts the whole thing in human terms, that has characters that you can believe in and relate to so that you can really get what it is. that we're up against. What's happening to Europe and what today and what will happen to America tomorrow. To get at the truth about this horrible situation from another direction and maybe in a somewhat deeper way. In a vivid, stirring, arresting way, hopefully. Now, I've been published by pretty much every major American publisher, but I published this myself. After running it by my agent and a couple of other friends who thought it was a very strong book, I concluded that this would, on the basis of their advice, that it would be a waste of time to try to run this by editors in New York. That's the kind of thing that can take a year or more. I wanted to get this out. I wanted to get it to the public. And I have, I've been writing so much for the internet now. Thank goodness for the internet. The internet has been this, may well turn out to be our salvation. Because there's so many traditional media publications that do not want to publish straightforward, honest articles about these subjects. And in the same way, the mainstream publishers do not want to publish a novel like this. If they want to publish a novel about Islam, it has to be something cozy and reassuring, and the people are drinking cups of tea under a palm tree, and under an olive tree or something, and but this is the real thing. This is the hard facts wrapped in a story. And so, in any case, as I say, I self-published it. It's called the Alhambra. You can order it on Amazon. And thank goodness for Amazon, as I say. Thank goodness for the internet. Thank goodness for Amazon. And in closing, thank goodness for the Glazov Gang. Please support the Glazov Gang at jamieglazov.com. And make sure that you're subscribed to this Glazov Gang channel. Thank you for listening.